Molasses wave killed 21 people, January 15th, 1919. Boston's North End, a vibrant, immigrant neighborhood teeming with life, love, and the lingering scent of molasses, was about to be engulfed in a tragedy so bizarre, so unexpected, that it would forever stain the city's collective memory. The Great War had just ended. A fragile peace hung in the air, and prohibition loomed, casting a shadow of uncertainty over the nation. But on that fateful day, the residents of Boston had more immediate concerns than politics or temperance. They were about to face a force of nature, a sticky, suffocating tide of molasses unleashed upon their unsuspecting streets. Few could have imagined that a simple industrial accident could transform into a scene of utter devastation, leaving a trail of death, destruction, and unanswered questions in its wake. The story begins not with a bang, but with a groan, a low, ominous rumble emanating from a colossal tank looming over the neighborhood. A silent behemoth filled with a dark, viscous secret, the Purity Distilling Company, owned by the United States Industrial Alcohol Company, erected the massive molasses tank in 1915. It stood at the edge of the North End, a towering steel structure holding up to 2.3 million gallons of the sticky sweetener. Molasses, the byproduct of sugar refining, was not just for baking. In 1919, it was a key ingredient in the production of industrial alcohol, a vital component for munitions manufacturing during World War I. The tank was a symbol of wartime industry, a testament to America's growing power. But the residents of the North End viewed it with suspicion. They saw it as an intrusive presence, a hulking monstrosity that marred their close-knit community. The tank frequently leaked, its sides groaning under the immense pressure. Children would even collect the seeping molasses in buckets, a sweet, albeit unsanitary, treat. These leaks, these groans, were warning signs, whispers of impending disaster that went tragically unheeded. The morning of January 15th was unseasonably warm for Boston. The temperature climbed above 40 degrees Fahrenheit, a significant shift after a period of frigid weather. Around midday, workers near the tank noticed increased activity. They heard the familiar groaning, louder this time, more insistent. They saw the telltale leaks, now more like streams, trickling down the tank's riveted sides. No one sounded the alarm. Perhaps they were used to it, lulled into complacency by the tank's constant complaints. Perhaps they feared losing their jobs if they raised concerns. Whatever the reason, the warnings were ignored. The stage was set for catastrophe. At approximately 12:30 p.m., the inevitable happened. The tank, unable to contain the immense pressure any longer, gave way. The sound was deafening, described by witnesses as a combination of a roaring train and machine gun fire. The tank burst open, unleashing a wave of molasses estimated to be 25 feet high, traveling at a speed of 35 miles per hour. It was a sticky, brown tsunami, an unstoppable force that flattened everything in its path. Buildings were ripped from their foundations, horses and carts were swept away, and people were caught in the molasses' relentless grip. The sheer volume of the liquid was overwhelming, turning streets into rivers of sticky, suffocating goo. The North End, once a vibrant community, was transformed into a scene of unimaginable horror. The immediate aftermath was chaos. First responders struggled to navigate the molasses-covered streets, their boots sinking into the thick, sticky mass. victims were trapped, unable to move, slowly suffocating in the sugary deluge. The sheer viscosity of the molasses made rescue efforts incredibly difficult. It was like trying to swim through glue, every movement an agonizing struggle. Firefighters, police officers, and ordinary citizens worked tirelessly, using axes, ropes, and anything they could find to pull people from the muck. But for many, it was too late. The molasses had already claimed its victims, leaving behind a trail of death and devastation. Among the first to point fingers was the local community. Many believed the tank had been shoddily constructed, rushed to completion to meet wartime demands. There were rumors of substandard materials, corners cut to save time and money. These accusations were aimed squarely at the United States Industrial Alcohol Company, the owners of the tank. They were accused of negligence, of prioritizing profit over safety. The company, predictably, denied any wrongdoing, claiming the tank was structurally sound, and that the disaster was simply an unforeseen accident. They pointed to the unseasonably warm weather as a contributing factor, suggesting that it had caused the molasses to expand and exert undue pressure on the tank's walls. The initial investigation focused on structural failure. Engineers examined the wreckage, poring over blueprints and analyzing the tank's remains. Their findings were damning. The tank's walls were significantly thinner than specifications required, suggesting that inferior materials had been used. Furthermore, the tank had never been properly tested before being filled with molasses, a critical oversight that could have identified potential weaknesses. The evidence pointed to negligence on the part of the United States Industrial Alcohol Company. But there was another, more sinister theory circulating among the investigators. Some suspected sabotage. The United States Industrial Alcohol Company had a history of labor disputes, and there were rumors of disgruntled employees seeking revenge. Perhaps someone had deliberately weakened the tank, hoping to disrupt production and inflict financial damage on the company. This theory gained traction when investigators discovered evidence of potential tampering, including suspicious scratches and dents on the tank's exterior. Could the Great Molasses Flood have been an act of industrial sabotage? The possibility added another layer of intrigue to the already complex investigation. The trial that followed was a protracted and contentious affair. The families of the victims sued the United States Industrial Alcohol Company, seeking compensation for their losses. The company, in turn, fought back fiercely, employing a team of lawyers to defend its reputation and protect its assets. The courtroom became a battleground, a stage for conflicting narratives and competing expert testimonies. The trial dragged on for years, exposing the company's negligence and ultimately leading to a settlement in favor of the victims' families. But even after the legal proceedings concluded, questions lingered. Had the full truth been revealed? Were there other factors that contributed to the disaster that had been deliberately concealed? The settlement forced the United States Industrial Alcohol Company to pay out hundreds of thousands of dollars to the victims' families. While this offered some measure of financial relief, it could never truly compensate for the loss of life and the trauma inflicted on the North End community. The disaster exposed the dangers of unchecked industrial power and the importance of safety regulations. It served as a wake-up call, prompting reforms in building codes and engineering practices, but the memory of the Great Molasses flood remained. A dark stain on Boston's history, the disaster left an indelible mark on the North End. The community, already struggling with poverty and discrimination, was further devastated by the tragedy. The streets were cleaned, the buildings were rebuilt, but the scars remained. The sweet, sickly smell of molasses lingered in the air for years, a constant reminder of the lives that were lost. The Great Molasses Flood became a cautionary tale, a symbol of corporate negligence and the devastating consequences of prioritizing profit over human safety. But the story doesn't end there. While the official investigation blamed structural failure and negligence, some researchers continued to explore the possibility of sabotage. They argued that the evidence of tampering was too compelling to ignore. They pointed to the company's history of labor disputes and the presence of radical political groups in the North End as potential motives. Could the Great Molasses Flood have been a deliberate act of terrorism, a violent protest against the capitalist system? It's a disturbing thought, one that challenges the conventional narrative of the disaster. One particularly compelling piece of evidence, often cited by those who suspect sabotage, is the timing of the flood. It occurred just as prohibition was looming, threatening to cripple the alcohol industry. The United States Industrial Alcohol Company stood to lose a fortune if the sale of alcohol was outlawed. Could they have deliberately destroyed the tank, framing it as an accident in order to collect insurance money and conceal their assets before prohibition took effect? It's a wild theory, but it raises intriguing questions about the company's true motives. Adding to the mystery is the fact that some key documents related to the investigation have disappeared over the years. Blueprints, witness statements, and internal company memos have vanished from the archives, fueling speculation that someone is trying to cover up the truth. Are these disappearances simply the result of bureaucratic incompetence, or are they evidence of a deliberate attempt to conceal incriminating information? The answer remains elusive. Today, the site of the Great Molasses Flood is a baseball field, a place of recreation and community gathering. Few who play there know the dark history that lies beneath their feet, but if you listen closely on a warm day, some say you can still catch a faint whiff of molasses in the air, a ghostly reminder of the disaster that once engulfed the North End. The Great Molasses Flood remains an unsolved mystery, a chilling reminder of the fragility of life and the enduring power of secrets. The truth, like the molasses itself, may be thick, sticky, and difficult to untangle, but it continues to haunt the streets of Boston, a sweet and bitter testament to a tragedy that should never be forgotten.